Imagine this. You're one of the richest men in the world, a billionaire who's built an empire from the ground up. You've got it all: luxury cars, private jets, a penthouse overlooking the city, and a name that commands respect. But tonight, you're not in your chauffeured limo or your sleek Tesla. Tonight, you're stepping into a rideshare, a decision made on a whim, a fleeting moment of curiosity about how the other half lives. The door closes, the car pulls away, and then it happens. You look up, and your world stops. The driver, a single mother, her face etched with the kind of resilience that only life's hardest battles can carve, is someone from your past. Someone you never expected to see again. Someone who holds a secret that could unravel everything you've built. This is the moment where two worlds collide, where the past and present crash into each other with the force of a freight train. And this, my friends, is where our story begins. If you're someone who loves a tale of mystery, redemption, and the kind of twists that leave you breathless, you're in the right place. Because this isn't just a story about a billionaire and a single mother. This is a story about choices, consequences, and the invisible threads that connect us all. It's about how one decision, one moment, can change the course of countless lives. And trust me, by the time this story unfolds, you'll be asking yourself, what would I do if I were in their shoes? Now, let's talk about you for a second. Why are you here? What made you click on this video? Was it the word billionaire? The intrigue of a chance encounter? Or maybe it's the promise of a mystery that keeps you guessing until the very end. Whatever it is, I want you to know this. You're not just here to watch a story. You're here to experience it. To feel the tension, the heartache, the hope, and the shock. And I promise you, by the time this video is over, you'll have the answers you're looking for. But here's the catch: you're going to have to stick with me until the very end. Because this story, it's not what you think. It's so much more. Let's set the stage. Our billionaire, let's call him Alexander Kane, is a man who spent his life running from his past, from his mistakes, from the people he's hurt along the way. He's a self-made man, but at what cost? His empire is built on a foundation of secrets, and he's always been one step ahead of anyone who might try to expose him. But tonight, fate has other plans. Because the woman behind the wheel, the single mother who's just trying to make ends meet, is someone who knows his secrets better than anyone. Her name is Clara, and she's not just a face from his past. She's a reminder of everything he's tried to forget. As the car winds through the city streets, the tension between them is palpable. There's so much left unsaid, so many questions hanging in the air. Why did they part ways all those years ago? What brought Clara to this point, driving strangers around the city just to put food on the table? And most importantly, what happens when the truth finally comes out? Because it will. Secrets have a way of surfacing, no matter how deep you bury them. But here's the thing, this isn't just a story about Alexander and Clara. It's a story about you. About the choices you've made, the people you've hurt, and the bridges you've burned. It's about the moments that define us, the ones we can't take back. And as you watch this story unfold, I want you to think about your own life. What would you do if you were faced with the consequences of your past? Would you run like Alexander? Or would you face them head on, like Clara? I know what you're thinking. You're here for the mystery, the drama, the twists and turns that keep you on the edge of your seat. And trust me, you're going to get all of that and more. But I also want you to feel something. To connect with these characters, to see a little bit of yourself in their struggles and their triumphs. Because that's what makes a story unforgettable. It's not just about what happens, it's about how it makes you feel. So, as we dive into this tale of love, loss, and redemption, I want you to do something for me. I want you to let go of everything else for a moment. Forget about the notifications on your phone, the to-do list waiting for you, the distractions of the world outside. Just be here in this moment with me. Because this story, it's worth your full attention. And I promise you, by the time it's over, you'll be glad you stayed. But before we go any further, let me leave you with this, as Alexander and Clara's journey unfolds. There's one question that will haunt you. One mystery that will keep you guessing until the very end. What really happened between them all those years ago? And what happens when the truth finally comes out? The answers are coming, but you're going to have to wait for them. Because this story? It's just getting started. So, buckle up. You're in for a ride. And trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. As the car glides through the neon-lit streets of the city. The silence between Alexander and Clara is heavy, charged with unspoken words and memories that neither of them is ready to confront. The hum of the engine and the occasional honk of a passing car are the only sounds that fill the space, but the tension is deafening. Alexander shifts uncomfortably in the back seat, his designer suit feeling suddenly too tight, his usual air of confidence replaced by a rare vulnerability. He can't help but steal glances at Clara through the rearview mirror, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the dashboard lights. She looks older, of course. Time has etched lines of hardship and resilience into her features. But there's something in her eyes that hasn't changed. A fire, a determination that he remembers all too well. Clara, for her part, keeps her focus on the road, her hands gripping the steering wheel just a little too tightly. She spent years trying to forget Alexander, to bury the memories of a time when their lives were intertwined in ways that neither of them could have imagined. But now, here he is, sitting in her back seat as if the universe has decided to play a cruel joke on her. She wonders if he even recognizes her, if he remembers the girl she used to be before life knocked her down and forced her to fight for every little thing she has. She wants to ask him why he left, why he disappeared without a word, leaving her to pick up the pieces of a shattered life. But she doesn't. Not yet. Because some wounds are too deep, too raw to be opened so easily. The city outside is a blur of lights and shadows, a metaphor for the lives they've both lived since they last saw each other. Alexander's world is one of opulence and power, a gilded cage where every move is calculated, every relationship transactional. He's built an empire on the backs of others, climbing his way to the top with a ruthless determination that has left little room for anything or anyone else. But tonight, as he sits in the back of Clara's car, he can't shake the feeling that he's been running from something far more important than money or success. He's been running from himself, from the man he used to be, and from the choices that have haunted him for years. Clara's world, on the other hand, is one of survival. She's a single mother, raising a young son on her own, working long hours just to keep a roof over their heads and food on the table. Her life is a far cry from the dreams she once had, the dreams she shared with Alexander in a time that feels like another lifetime. But despite the hardships, she's proud of what she's built. Her son, Ethan, is her everything, a bright, curious boy who reminds her every day why she keeps fighting. And yet, there's a part of her that still wonders what might have been if things had turned out differently. If Alexander had stayed, if he had been the man she thought he was. As the car turns onto a quieter street, the tension between them begins to crack. Just a little. Alexander clears his throat, breaking the silence for the first time since he got into the car. "Claire," he says, his voice softer than she remembers. "It's been a long time." The sound of her name on his lips sends a shiver down her spine, but she doesn't respond right away. She's not sure what to say, how to bridge the gap between the past and the present. Finally, she glances at him in the rearview mirror, her eyes meeting his for the first time. "Yeah," she says simply, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside her. It has. The conversation, if you can even call it that, is stilted, awkward, but it's a start. And as they continue to drive, the city fading into the background, the layers of their shared history begin to peel back, revealing glimpses of the people they used to be. Alexander remembers the girl who believed in him when no one else did, who saw the potential in him long before he saw it in himself. Claire remembers the man who promised her the world, who made her believe that anything was possible. But those memories are tinged with pain, with the knowledge of how it all fell apart. As the miles stretch on, the story begins to unfold in ways that neither of them could have anticipated. There are secrets buried in their past, secrets that have the power to change everything. Secrets that involve not just the two of them, but others who have been pulled into their orbit over the years. There's Marcus, Alexander's former business partner, who has his own reasons for wanting to keep the past buried. There's Evelyn, Claire's best friend, who has always been her rock, but who harbors secrets of her own. And then there's Ethan, Claire's son, whose very existence is a mystery that Alexander is only beginning to unravel. The night grows darker, the streets emptier, but the tension in the car only grows. With every passing mile, the stakes get higher, the questions more urgent. What really happened between Alexander and Clara all those years ago? Why did he leave, and what brought him back into her life now? And perhaps most importantly, what happens when the truth finally comes out? Because it will. Secrets have a way of surfacing, no matter how deep you bury them. And when they do, nothing will ever be the same. But for now, the answers remain just out of reach, hidden in the shadows of the past. And as the car continues its journey through the night, one thing becomes clear: this is just the beginning. The road ahead is long, and the twists and turns are far from over. So, stay with me, because this story is about to take you places you never expected. And trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. The car slows as Clara pulls into a dimly lit parking lot outside a small diner, the kind of place that's seen better days but still holds a certain charm. The neon sign flickers weakly, casting a pale glow over the cracked pavement. She parks the car and turns off the engine, the sudden silence amplifying the tension between them. Alexander looks out the window, his mind racing. He knows this place. It's where they used to come late at night, back when they were just two dreamers with nothing but each other and a shared vision of the future. The memories flood back, vivid and unrelenting. And for a moment, he's transported to a time when life was simpler, when the weight of his choices hadn't yet crushed him. But the moment passes, and he's left with the harsh reality of the present. Clara opens her door and steps out, the cool night air brushing against her face. She doesn't look back at Alexander, but she knows he'll follow. There's something she needs to say, something she's carried with her for years, and tonight feels like the right time, or maybe the only time to say it. Alexander hesitates for a moment, then exits the car, his polished shoes crunching against the gravel. He follows her into the diner, the bell above the door jingling softly as they enter. The place is nearly empty, save for a tired-looking waitress wiping down the counter and an old man nursing a cup of coffee in the corner. Claire slides into a booth by the window, and Alexander sits across from her, the table between them feeling like an insurmountable barrier. The waitress approaches, her smile polite but weary, and takes their orders. Clara asks for a black coffee, while Alexander, out of habit, requests an espresso. As the waitress walks away, Clara finally looks at him, her eyes searching his face for some sign of the man she once knew. "You look different," she says, her voice quiet but steady. "Older. Harder." Alexander meets her gaze, his own eyes guarded. "So do you," he replies, though his tone lacks the edge it usually carries. There's a vulnerability in his voice that surprises even him. The conversation that follows is halting, each word carefully chosen, as if they're both afraid of saying too much. Clara tells him about her life, about Ethan, her son, who's the center of her world. She doesn't mention the struggles, the sleepless nights, the constant worry about making ends meet. She doesn't have to. Alexander can see it in her eyes, in the way she holds herself, as if she's carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. And then, almost casually, she drops the bombshell. "He's your son, Alexander." The words hang in the air, heavy and unyielding, as Alexander processes what she's just said. His mind races, trying to make sense of it, but the pieces don't quite fit. "What?" he finally manages to say, his voice barely above a whisper. Claire nods, her expression a mix of defiance and sorrow. "Ethan is yours. I found out I was pregnant after you left. I tried to reach you, but you were gone. No forwarding address, no phone number, nothing. You vanished, and I was left to figure it out on my own." Alexander feels as if the ground has been ripped out from under him. He stares at Clara, his mind a whirlwind of emotions: shock, guilt, anger, and something else he can't quite name. He wants to deny it, to tell her she's wrong, but deep down, he knows she's telling the truth. The timeline adds up, and the boy's face, which he's only seen in a photo Claire keeps on her dashboard, bears an uncanny resemblance to his own. He opens his mouth to speak, but no words come out. What can he say? How can he possibly begin to make amends for a mistake that shaped the lives of two people he once cared about more than anything? Before he can respond, Claire's phone buzzes on the table, the screen lighting up with a text message. She glances at it, her expression shifting from sorrow to alarm. "I have to go," she says abruptly, standing up and grabbing her coat. Alexander reaches out, his hand brushing against hers. "Wait," he says, his voice urgent. "We need to talk about this. About Ethan. About us." Clara pulls her hand away, her eyes flashing with a mix of anger and fear. "There is no us, Alexander. Not anymore. And as for Ethan, he doesn't even know you exist. I'm not sure he ever will." With that, she turns and walks out of the diner, leaving Alexander sitting alone in the booth, his mind reeling. He watches through the window as she gets back into her car and drives away, the taillights disappearing into the night. He feels a surge of emotions: regret, frustration, and a desperate need to make things right. But how? How can he possibly undo the damage he's caused? As he sits there, lost in thought, his phone buzzes in his pocket. He pulls it out and sees a message from Marcus, his former business partner. The text is brief but ominous. "We need to talk." It's about Clara. Alexander's heart skips a beat. What does Marcus know? And why is he bringing up Claire now, after all these years? The pieces of the puzzle are starting to come together, but the picture they're forming is one that fills him with dread. The waitress returns with his espresso, but he barely notices. His mind is elsewhere, racing through the possibilities, the secrets, the lies. He knows one thing for certain: this is far from over. The past has a way of catching up with you, no matter how fast you run. And as he sits there, staring into the dark liquid in his cup, he realizes that the road ahead is going to be anything but easy. But for now, the night is quiet, the diner empty, and the weight of his choices heavier than ever. He takes a sip of his espresso, the bitterness a stark contrast to the sweetness of the memories he's been forced to confront. And as he sits there, alone in the flickering neon light, he can't help but wonder, is it too late to make things right? Or has the damage already been done? The answers are out there, waiting to be uncovered. But for now, the story is far from over. And trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Alexander sits in the diner for what feels like hours, the cold espresso untouched in front of him. His mind is a storm of emotions: guilt, regret, and a gnawing sense of responsibility that he can't shake. Claire's revelation about Ethan has shattered the carefully constructed walls he's built around himself, forcing him to confront the man he's become. He knows he can't let this go. He can't walk away again. Not this time. With a deep breath, he pulls out his phone and dials Marcus. The call goes straight to voicemail, but Alexander leaves a message, his voice firm and resolute. "We need to talk. Now. Meet me at the old warehouse." And Marcus, this isn't a request. The warehouse. It's a place steeped in history, both for Alexander and Marcus. It's where they started their first business together, a venture that would eventually grow into the empire Alexander now commands. But it's also where things began to unravel, where the cracks in their partnership first appeared. As Alexander drives through the empty streets, the city feels eerily quiet, as if it's holding its breath, waiting for the storm to break. When he arrives, the warehouse is dark, the only light coming from the moon filtering through the broken windows. He steps inside, the sound of his footsteps echoing in the vast, empty space. Marcus is already there, leaning against a rusted metal beam, his expression unreadable. "You came," Alexander says, his voice cutting through the silence. Marcus shrugs, his usual cocky demeanor replaced by something darker, more guarded. "You sounded serious. What's this about, Alex?" Alexander steps closer, his eyes narrowing. Clara? You mentioned her in your text. What do you know? Marcus hesitates, then lets out a bitter laugh. Oh, so you finally figured it out, huh? Took you long enough. Alexander's fists clench at his sides, but he keeps his voice steady. What are you talking about, Marcus? What did you do? Marcus pushes off the beam and takes a step forward, his eyes locking with Alexander's. You really don't remember, do you? That night, all those years ago. The night you left Clara. You were drunk, angry, and you said some things you probably don't even remember. But I do. I was there, Alex. I saw the whole thing. Alexander's stomach churns as fragments of that night come rushing back. The argument, the accusations, the way he'd stormed out without looking back. But there's something else, something he's buried so deep he almost forgot it existed. What are you telling me, Marcus? He demands, his voice rising. Marcus smirks, but there's no humor in it. You really want to know? Fine. That night, after you left, Claire came to me. She was scared, confused. She told me she was pregnant, and she didn't know what to do. She asked me for help, Alex, and I gave it to her. I helped her disappear to start over somewhere you'd never find her. I did it because I thought it was what she wanted. But now? Now I'm not so sure. Alexander feels as if the ground is crumbling beneath him. All these years he thought Claire had left him, that she'd walked away without a second thought. But the truth is far more complicated, far more painful. You lied to me, he says, his voice trembling with anger. You let me believe she was gone, that she didn't want anything to do with me. Why, Marcus? Why would you do that? Marcus shakes his head, his expression hardening. Because you didn't deserve her, Alex. You were so focused on building your empire, on becoming this untouchable billionaire, that you forgot about the people who mattered. You forgot about her. And you forgot about me. The words hit Alexander like a punch to the gut. He wants to argue, to defend himself, but deep down, he knows Marcus is right. He spent so much time running from his past, from his mistakes, that he's lost sight of who he really is. But now, standing in the shadow of the warehouse where it all began, he realizes he has a choice. He can keep running, or he can face the consequences of his actions and try to make things right. Without another word, Alexander turns and walks out of the warehouse, his mind made up. He drives straight to Claire's apartment, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. When she opens the door, her eyes widen in surprise, but she doesn't slam it in his face. Instead, she steps aside and lets him in. The apartment is small but cozy, filled with the warmth of a life built on love and resilience. Ethan is asleep on the couch, a blanket draped over him, and Alexander feels a lump form in his throat as he looks at the boy, his son. Clara crosses her arms, her expression guarded. What are you doing here, Alexander? She asks, her voice quiet but firm. He takes a deep breath, his eyes meeting hers. I'm here to make things right, he says. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, and I know I can't undo the past. But I want to be part of Ethan's life. I want to be there for him and for you, if you'll let me. Clara studies him for a long moment, her eyes searching his face for any hint of insincerity. Finally, she nods, her expression softening. It's not going to be easy, she warns. Ethan doesn't know you, and I'm not sure how he'll react. But if you're serious about this, if you're willing to put in the work, then maybe, just maybe, we can figure this out together. As Alexander stands there, surrounded by the life he never knew he had, he feels a sense of hope he hasn't felt in years. It's not going to be easy, and there will be challenges along the way, but for the first time in a long time, he's ready to face them. Because sometimes the hardest part of life isn't the mistakes you've made, it's finding the courage to make things right. And as the camera fades to black, one thing is clear. This is just the beginning of a new chapter, a story of redemption, forgiveness, and the power of second chances. So, what would you do if you were given the chance to rewrite your past? Would you take it? Or would you keep running? The choice is yours. But remember, the road to redemption is never easy, but it's always worth it. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more tales of love, loss, and the twists of fate that shape our lives. Until next time, keep chasing your second chances. You never know where they might lead.